I'm so excited to talk to you today. I just told the audience a little bit about you, but I want them to get to know you from you. So why don't we just start from the beginning? Can you just tell us a little bit about where you're from and kind of what your upbringing was like?
So I am originally from DC, born and raised, and I come from a lower income family, and I wasn't taught about money growing up. Probably more so what I was taught about money was not what not to do with money. So I really had to learn financial education on my own. And I'm one of six, so I was born in a household of six children total. I'm the second from the youngest. So I'm the baby girl, but I'm really a leader in the family in a lot of ways. So a lot of the things that I have done and learned, I share with my family. So I tend to have that role of being like a leader, the responsible one, all of that. But yeah, and I grew up in a household with both of my parents. So
What did your
um,
parents do for a living?
my mom, she actually worked in a factory, and my dad was a brick mason. So he actually had his own construction company for a period of time. So yeah, working class.
I love it. What about like how it was like household wise? Like you said, when payday came around, you said there was six or five siblings, I guess, because there's six of you
Mhm.
total. Was everybody talking about money? Was money never talked about? Or what do you remember as kind of like your first money memory?
I think it was a fear-based relationship with money. So money, of course, it was evasive, like there, didn't seem to be enough of it. And I say fear-based because the way that money was talked about and the way that it was treated, it just made me fearful of it. It made me fearful of it not being present for my needs whenever I needed it. Because I saw how it was with my parents and how they barely had enough to get by. I mean, I didn't feel it per se. I didn't go hungry or anything like that. I felt like I was taken care of. And if at the time, if you would have told me that we were low income or something, I wouldn't have necessarily thought that because I didn't feel it. But if I compare myself to like maybe friends that were able to have different things or like the name brand, clothes and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, I didn't have those things. But overall, we were taken care of.
Did they have discussions with you about some things like piggy banks? Was there an allowance, or there's some sort of way that money was kind of ingrained in you all as siblings? Did you have like the sibling that was the spender and you were the saver, or how were kind of like the little bits of money that maybe were in the bits of money that were given to you handle when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I did have an allowance growing up. So it was six of us, but actually we were kind of in two different sets. So there's the older four, then there was an 8 year gap, and then there was me and my brother. So it seemed like they grew up together, and then me and my younger brother grew up together. So when I was growing up, my dad had me and my brothers to give allowances too. So we got allowances for household chores and between me and my brother, I would say I was more responsible with money. I was more of a saver. He was the one that like, was ready to spend it on candy and toys and everything. And I spent it as well, but I think I was more mindful about how I spent it and I saved it a little more.
Gotcha. So from very early on, you already kind of had a saver's mentality just naturally.
Yeah. And then also, I think at some point, I would say probably more so in middle school, was when I really started to take notice of what was going on around me with money. And I didn't know how to do different, but I just knew I didn't want to do what I saw. So
Mm.
my goal was just once I went to college and beyond that to just do something different with money than what I saw done around me.
I love it. What was your first job?
So DC they had a summer youth employment program
Mhm.
run by the mayor. And so I would do that every summer, get a summer program through that. I mean, a summer job through that program. And I thought it was awesome. The fact that it provided teens with jobs in the summer and that program, was done away with probably at some point when I was in college. But yeah, so that was my First job. I mean, yeah, through that program. I'm trying to remember what I think my exact first job may have been working at the Pentagon.
Wow.
Yeah,
The
which is
perks of living in
odd.
DC.
I mean, I had different like that. I had one where I worked at the Pentagon, and then I also had one where I worked at like a summer camp for like toddlers. So it varied whatever the kind of jobs you had. I had one where I worked at, I think Home Depot. I mean, it wasn't Home Depot at the time, but some kind of store that was getting started and we had to stock it up. And I was like, I'm not cut out for manual labor. I didn't do that. I mean, I only did it for like a week and I was like, I need something else. But yeah, I had a variety of jobs. Just during the summer, I never had a job during the school year. My parents wanted me to focus on school.
I think that brings up a really good point. You know, as we talk about education, you know, there's undergraduate. I mean, there's get it together, Lauren. As we talk about education, there's elementary school, high school, or elementary school, middle school, high school, and then it gets optional after that. So, were there conversations in the household about college? Was it something that like all of you were expected to go? There was some savings for you to go. There was a conversation about how you all were going to end up paying for it, or what was kind of your plans for life after high school based on what you knew about college and the cost associated with it?
Mm-hmm. So I have my high school to thank for that, actually. So I went to Benjamin Banneker Senior High School in DC. It's an academic high school. So it's a high school that you have to apply and get into. You have to have like, great set scores and great grades. And that was a collegiate environment. I mean, it basically prepared us to go to college. So I was the first in my family to go to college. I had 4 siblings older than me. None of them went to college. And so, it's possible that I may have gone down that same path if I didn't have other influences to show me another way. So the fact that I went to that type of high school was a big reason why I went to college. And I actually went to an Ivy League college because my school was a magnet school with a lot of really smart people. There were people from my high school that went to Ivy League. So so others doing it, and it made me feel like, hey, let me shoot for it as well. So I applied and I got into Penn and Columbia and I ended up going to Penn.
Yay. Ooh, this is so good. I think you bring up a really good point about the idea of just even being able to see that it's possible and not feel like it's an abnormal thing. I think so often we paint things like going to college or going to an Ivy League college, or, there's various different levels of things that people are achieving in life. And we paint it as like, this is the sun, the moon, the stars, and the rain. But if it's like a regular thing that happens, you're like, oh, this is what you do next. And it helps you kind of govern yourself accordingly and maybe even take some of the pressure off of, the journey to be able to get there. It's like, okay, I know I have to do these things to go there, but it is absolutely possible versus like, if I go there, I'm going to be like an Olympic gold medalist with the world record, like it's the achievement of all achievements. I think that really speaks to like just even having an environment where other people are doing it and making it feel like it's like, you can totally do this thing.
Yeah. And then also like, even with, some top tier HBC, like Spelman, a lot of, I had people from my school that went to Spelman. That's another school that I applied to. I got in, but I chose to go to Penn. But I mean, in hindsight, a lot of my friends went to Spelman, and that was, an excellent school. So it was just basically excellence was the norm at the school I went to. So that's what we strove for.
Yes, I like it. Excellence is the norm. Yes. That needs to be a t-shirt, right? So how did you decide, like, how were you able to fund your education? Was it completely academic scholarships? Was there some student loans, some money set aside, or?
Yeah, so that was the thing. So my parents, of course, did not have money to pay for school. So it was a mixture. I was able to get financial education because of their income. So I got, part financial education. I got student loans, and my father also took out a parent loan. So it was a mixture of all of that. And I got some scholarships as well. I applied for some scholarships, third party, scholarships while I was in high school that I got to help me with the first year. I don't think I had any that were recurring. So from there, it was just financial aid and loans.
Excellent. So as I think about like, you going off to an Ivy League school, like you said, it's an honor, it's a privilege. You're the first one in your family. Did you feel pressure around like what you were going to choose to major in and what kind of direction you were going to take in like life above and beyond? Now you're at college, like what do you want to do with your college degree?
So I don't think I felt pressure, not from my family, probably from peers. So the fact that I went to a high school with, so many people that went to college and did well. So I probably more so felt the pressure there. And for me, I knew that I always enjoyed computers. I enjoyed like doing things with computers. I enjoyed math. So I went into Penn as a computer science engineer major, and I took my first programming class and realized that was not for me. So I left computer science engineering, and I still stayed in engineering. I went to systems engineering.
Okay.
And that was more so my speed because it wasn't so much coding. Coding just wasn't my thing. And college was a whole other world. I was used to being a top student in high school, but when I got to Penn, like it really humbled me because especially because I started computer science engineering, which wasn't my thing. So, I had some pretty low grades. And my mom was like, what are you doing? You got to get it together. Like she took it as me, goofing around and not being focused. But I'm like, no, this stuff is just hard.
Right.
But I switched to systems engineering, and then I was able to get it together and bring my grades up.
Did you notice, you were talking about like middle school, starting to notice a little bit about how some things were different environment wise, or, some what people had versus what you didn't, and wanting to change the way that you were going to deal with money. Was there any transitions like that happened again in college, that you had kind of switched environments from one that you were used to a new environment at Columbia?
Penn.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Because there were definitely people there with, a lot of money, but it wasn't a big deal. I didn't make a big thing of it. And it wasn't a big deal really for the most part. I remember a summer program I did. Actually, I did a summer program at Cornell, and being there, I think is when I kind of felt it the most. I remember going shopping like to the mall with some other people in the program, and they were able to get things and I wasn't. And I remember being upset about that. And I wrote a letter home to my sister, and, she just kind of talked me through it and was like, you have love, you're loved. Like, don't worry about those material things. It's okay. So it helped me to put things into perspective. But yeah, I definitely saw a difference in just the economic status levels, with my peers and people I went to school with.
Definitely. So what happened when you finished? Did you finish with the engineering degree, and what were you planning to do? Kind of take us through life after college.
So yes, I did finish with my systems engineering degree, and I went back home to DC. I applied for positions. I wanted to stay East Coast and, big city as much as possible. So I think I mostly applied to things in New York and DC. I ended up going back to DC and taking a job there. And I didn't have like this big grandiose career plan, like maybe some people will, maybe enter the workforce with. I was just happy to, have a job, because I know, especially, a little bit after I graduated, people were having a hard time finding jobs after school. So I definitely was, happy to have a job. And then from there, starting to get a paycheck and figuring out what to do with it, like how to navigate personal finance. So, and I think that was really when I started to notice, like, okay, now I have money and I have to figure out like what to do with money, because I was never taught it growing up.
What was your overwhelming feeling at that kind of I have money point? Was it like a feeling of overwhelm or excitement or scared or?
It was, I think it was a feeling of frustration for me, or disappointment, because I feel like I wasn't using it smartly. I don't know where it was going, to be quite honest. Like initially my money was a bit of a black hole to me. So I got it and it got spent somehow and it was gone. So like, I didn't know what I was doing with it. I wasn't really intentional about how I was using it. And so, as a result, I saw, I saw the fruits of that. And I had an experience like fresh out of college where I became a homeowner, because I was talking to two friends that I went to college with, and they I went to high school with. So I came back home and, reconnected with some high school friends, and we were talking about moving in together. And they said, instead of getting an apartment where we're all paying rent to someone else, why doesn't one of us buy a house and we'll just help that other person with the rent, with the mortgage? So it ended up being me that got nominated to buy the house. So I started going through the process, and one by one, both of my roommates backed out. So I got this new house, this mortgage. Both of my roommates backed out. But, I pressed forward, and, the whole advice, you get the house first, then the car, you don't want to do things out of order. So 2 weeks after closing, I bought my first car. Mm. And then 2 weeks after that, I lost my job.
Wow.
So yes. So there I was with a new house, no roommates as planned, a new car, and no job. So I got the hard knocks, money lesson, like very, very quickly after college.
And these are the stories, like you said, that you can't make up. You don't know what is coming around the corner. None of us do. Life is always going to throw us some sort of curveball. And it's like, everything is good. Everything is, wait. And then you're like, wait, now they're piling all these things on top of you. So what did you do in that moment? What did the months look like after that?
Ooh, I fought like heck. So I applied for unemployment just to keep things going. I was like, I can't have this new house and, lose it right away. And unfortunately, I didn't have much savings because I didn't have my finances together at the time. So I had minimal savings. But I took unemployment while I just ferociously searched for a job. And I did land a job. It was, nothing great, just something to get some income in. And I continued to job hunt. And then I actually landed in what became a career, like actually a 15-year career. So, wow. Yeah, I just, by God's grace, continued to job hunt and found something that, was good.
I think you just kind of hit on a really good point too about, purchasing the home, and you said you didn't have any significant savings. And I think that's something that's often overlooked. And especially with the events of the last 2 years related to COVID and people wanting to get out from being, trapped in apartments and working remotely and wanting bigger spaces. We've been in a period where the housing market is booming. And lots of people are coming, to me with FOMO, if you will, of like, oh my goodness, I have to get a house right now. All my friends are getting a house. The market's never going to go down again. I got to get it, and there's tons and tons of people that are getting their homes, but they're maybe not in the best financial situation to buy a home. And I think sometimes people think that they're never going to be able to buy a home because they're not in a great financial situation. But then there are others who are just like, well, everyone else is doing it and they can't be in as good a financial situation as me, so I'm going to do it too. And I just like to drive home the point that, you don't have to be in the best financial situation to buy a home. Will it be possible? Yes. But is it the right thing to do for you in that moment? It may not be. So you always want to take a look at your, overall situation. And you kind of really brought that to light in the idea of like, I had a job, I was qualified. They gave me the approval, et cetera. But also there was no backup, there was no emergency funds in order to be able to kind of carry myself if something was to happen with this very real bill that was coming along.
Yeah. I think, the term we hear, house poor, and that tends to relate to, I guess, buying too much home, like too big of a mortgage. But I also think of it as being, going to some home ownership, but not, as you said, having that emergency fund, having something to fall back on, because you just never know as a homeowner. Even if you don't lose your job, you could have some costly repair that pops up. Like, as a homeowner, things are always coming up. And it's just really important to have that cushion, that emergency fund.
Definitely. So tell me a little bit about what happened next. Sounds like that was a pretty traumatic time. Was that an event for you that you kind of said like, okay, I'm turning hard left, I want to kind of right the ship, I don't want to end up in this situation again? Or is there kind of more to the story before you really became, hardcore, let me get myself financially literate and getting on this path to becoming a millionaire?
Yeah, that definitely was a starting point. So that made me really, sit up and take notice of finances and start to study personal finance. But I still drug my feet on it a little bit, and still, kind of piddled around with it over the years. But just I think being in spaces like in my new job, being around people that talked about personal finance, because I didn't have anyone in my life that I ever talked to about that. And I had one coworker, actually a couple of coworkers, that actually talked to me about money and personal finance. And so that made me want to like dig in a little more and get a little more serious with it. So I would say at that point, I really started to study it so that, I wasn't just existing and just going along. Like I really wanted to start to thrive in terms of my finances.
I love it. So tell us a little bit about how you went on this journey, because I know, part of your story is that you're not, you did it what we call kind of the normal way, if you will. There's a lot of different, get rich quick ideas out there. There's, I even hesitate. I call some of them get rich quick schemes, and a lot of things where people are trying to make large amounts of money really, really quickly, and kind of hit it big, if you will. But most of the millionaires we've had on our show up to this point have done a kind of slow and steady way. What was your path to, changing the trajectory of your finances?
Yeah, so it definitely was slow and steady, and it was maximizing the use of my corporate career. So I know a lot of times people feel like you have to be, and what's really portrayed nowadays is, the way to building wealth and getting rich and becoming a millionaire, you have to be a business owner or have this high, growth in business, be an entrepreneur or be a real estate investor, a stock trader, things like that. And so the path that I took and the path that I help women navigate is how to use their corporate salary to build wealth. So just really setting a firm foundation for your finances, dealing with that mindset, those habits and behaviors, they are really key. Dealing with your spending, how you're spending your money, because that's really the key to maximizing your income is being intentional about what you're doing with it. So having a plan for how you're going to use your income, debt elimination, just not being so scattered in my finances, and then investing, because really all those previous steps that I just mentioned set me up to invest as much as possible. So like once I had that foundation set, then I was able to really invest. And then over the years, I can increase my investing. So that was, really my path.
Okay, well, let's break it down a little bit then. I mean, one of the first things is I know you had some debt. So, you mentioned student loan debt initially, to get things going. Was there like kind of other debts that you needed to take care of as you started to change your trajectory? And like, is there like a budgeting kind of tool that you use or a process that makes that helped you along the way to be able to build like, okay, here's my plan. And what was that part of the process like for you?
So in terms of my debt, I had, when I started my financial transformation, I guess it was at $25,000 in debt. And I actually eliminated it in 8 months. So if you do the math, that's like a little over $3,000 per month. And I had student loan debt and car loan and a little bit of credit card debt. And basically, I was just really intense and focused about it. And my thing was make the short-term sacrifices for the long-term gain. So I knew that, I was going to, just get really intense and knock it out, and then it would be done with. So I wasn't afraid. I didn't shy away from getting really disciplined and really, I guess, intense about throwing money at the debt for that period of time, because I knew it wasn't going to last forever. And really, I mean, my saving rates, my secret, whatever during that time was quite honestly my spending plan or my budget, whatever you want to call it. But as I mentioned before, my money was a black hole to me before I began to budget. So having that insight into exactly what my money was doing was really what made the difference. Like I didn't get a second job. I didn't, do anything else, but start to really be intentional about my money, like what I was doing with it. And from that, I was able to, knock out $3,000 of debt per month without, getting a second job. I mean, I sold minor stuff. I don't even know if I made $1,000 on what I sold. It was very minor, just, little odds and ends around the house, but it really was getting intentional about my income and how I was using it.
I love it. So okay, so we checked the debt box, and then now you had kind of like $3,000 that you had been allotting toward one thing. Did you have like kind of a conversation with yourself about, how you were going to reallocate those dollars, or did you already know what you were going to do with that $3,000 once the debt was gone?
Yeah, I wanted to build up my savings because, I didn't want to be in that place again where I didn't have a safety net. So I wanted to have like at least 6 months of living expenses, especially given that I'm a, single one income household. So if anything happened with my job, that was all of my income gone. So I wanted to have that cushion. So I built that up, and I think it took me about, I would say about 5 or 6 months to like build my 6 months of living expenses.
Okay.
And then from there, I would think at that point is when I kind of let back. So that's when I lightened up the intensity, and I began to travel again because I love to, travel the world, but I put travel on hold for a little bit, some of those extra things for about a year and a half, which in the grand scheme of things, like it's not a long time. And so I began to, do some of the travel again and invest. So I just increased my investing. And as I mentioned, like over the years, I just kept increasing, like as I got income increases, bonuses, anything. I just was intentional about just investing more. Like I'm an experienced person. So as long as I can travel and have experiences, I'm good. Like I'm not really into things. I don't need a bunch of material things. So I didn't need to, spend money on that type of stuff. So I was really focused on investing.
Yeah, I love the point you made about, the, year and a half of not traveling. And I think one of the biggest things that I hear people come up against right now is the idea that like, it's going to take forever to do XYZ, like, oh my goodness, in 5 years, I'll have my emergency fund, or in X amount of time, XYZ will happen. And I think it's very discouraging for people because we live in a right now kind of world. I can press a button and a car will come pick me up immediately, sort of thing. I can, press a button and a massage therapist will be at my house. You can press a button for just about anything in your life now, or go on the internet and, it'll show up at your house, groceries wise, or like you said, anything you want to buy. And I think it's kind of discouraged people from the idea that, like you said, a year and a half is not that long a time. So, take your 21-year-old self. You could go, a year and a half later, you're not even 23 years old at that point, or take your 35-year-old self. You're not, you're not 30, you're still not in your 40s yet. And so like a year and a half sounds like a long time because it is, a trek in some sort of ways, but at the same time, it's also a very short time in the grand scheme. If you're planning on living till you're 80, it's a pretty small amount of time to be able to turn around, right your ship so that you can have a lot more experiences. So like you said, that short-term sacrifice for the long-term gain, I think is sometimes a little bit harder for people to kind of plant their foot and be patient about, as opposed to, being able to move forward. But like you said, you were able to do that. And then, like you said, next step was, okay, we got the debt paid off, we got the savings build up, and now it's like, okay, let's turn to investing. What kind of investment accounts or vehicles were you using, and what was kind of your investment strategy overall?
So definitely long-term buy and hold. So of course, maximizing my corporate benefits there. So company matching and all of that, investing as much as possible there, of course, to take advantage of the IRS, tax benefits as well. And I focused on that primarily. And then over time, my investment strategy changed because there were things that I knew were coming up on the horizon. So I actually had positioned myself unknowingly. It wasn't my intention, but, the result of consistency and discipline around my finances. So I actually was positioned to retire early. So retire at the age of 51. And I mean, that's just how it turned out. It wasn't something I was aiming for or anything. So it was like, okay, cool. Like if you are going to do that, and I mean, as you may know, with FIRE and people that are, do the FIRE movement, like if you're going to retire early, then you would have to have something to live off of before you can withdraw from retirement accounts. So just for that, maybe eventual, milestone or stage in life, I knew that I needed to start to do some liquid investing. So I got a taxable investment account and started to invest in that so that that money could be liquid in case I ever needed it. So yeah, I started to mix up my investment strategy.
So it sounds like you used your company 401k and, we're doing really good there. Mm-hmm. And then at some point you learned about FIRE movement, or like you said, you never clearly said like, oh, I want to retire at 51. But at some point you heard about maybe not having it all in the 401k, or you maxed out the 401k and were like, well, where else can I put money? And then you started using the brokerage account. How did that kind of part play itself out?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I adopted or joined the FIRE movement. I was just referencing it because I know that a lot of people will have like taxable investment accounts who are part of the FIRE movement. So that's a big reason that people, would get it if they do want to retire early. But for me personally, I was maxing out my retirement account or my 401k up to the IRS limits. And so I was just really doing all of this retirement investing. And I got to a point where it was like, okay, you're in a good path for retirement. Like your retirement is pretty set. You actually could retire early. So you're not, you're not liking anything retirement wise. Like you can start to invest other ways. So if I did, as I mentioned, want to retire early, I would need some kind of cash flow for that, but then also just other things. Like I knew I was wanting to go into entrepreneurship or possibly full-time entrepreneurship, and then also real estate investing. So I just wanted a way to start to save and invest and have money that I could use for other things in life.
I love it. So brokerage account and employer retirement plan was the way that you did it. Yeah. Are there any other things that kind of came up along the way as you kind of went on this journey that, kind of popped up that you would give people as advice and say like, this was a very important part of me being able to achieve my financial success?
I would say, I guess being key to achieving my financial success was just really being grounded and focused in my strategy. So the investment strategy that I built for myself, while to many people, it doesn't seem sexy, or anything like that. I'm not like, Bitcoin and, trading stocks, jumping in and out of stocks, all that type of stuff. So, to some people, it may not seem sexy, but I was very secure. I was very, grounded in my investment strategy, and I stuck with it. I wasn't trying to chase what everyone else was doing. I wasn't trying to, go with the trends or what was hot. And I think that was really key for me because I wasn't also losing money chasing a bunch of things. Like I feel like we can actually set ourselves back if we're trying to chase this and chase that. So I think by staying focused on my plan, my strategy, it just really, carried me through and did well for me. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell people that, disagree with my strategy, but it worked for me. And there's nothing I would change about it.
I love it. And so now that you, kind of like you said, have achieved financial freedom for yourself, I know you mentioned 5 siblings and your parents, and I'm sure you have some friends. How are you having discussions with people that you care about as it pertains to money? Are they open to it? And are you all, have you helped some other people outside of your clients be able to build the strategies? And how do money talks go for you?
So yeah, I quickly became the go-to person for money advice amongst friends and family. And when I started to, learn about personal finance and the strategy that I was implementing, the things that I was doing, and I felt like I was having success, like I was excited about it, like I wanted to share with everyone. So I had like a little workshop at my house, invited some friends and family over, and I was like, hey, this is what I'm learning. And, try to teach it to them, try to get them on board. But, people, especially people that know you, like they are resistant to change. So there was no one that just really jumped on board with me and was like, yeah, April, I'm going to follow what you told me to do, and I'm going to do it too. So it didn't happen that way, but people just continued to watch me. So the people in my life, like family and friends, they actually implemented stuff, but they didn't even tell me. So down the line, I'm hearing the stories like, my sister had mentioned that she, got rid of her credit cards, and she focused on, building up her savings and cash flowing things. And if she couldn't, afford to cash flow it, then she just didn't get it. But she stopped, running up consumer debt. And one of my friends, she actually, unfortunately, her husband passed away unexpectedly. But she told me that when she bought her house, she bought it where she could she could, pay the mortgage by herself if ever needed. I mean, she didn't have any particular reason why, but she just felt like if there was ever one income, she wanted to be able to pay the mortgage. And she said because of things that she had learned from me, she did that. And it actually, it came, handy for her when her husband passed away, and she was left to pay the mortgage by herself. And I was just like, wow, like, I mean, that really touched me. And I was just like, so people are watching you, you never know what they're getting from you. And they may not always tell you and share it with you, but that's fine as long as they're taking it in and it's helping them. That's all that matters.
I love that. It's actually making me tingle a little. Like the idea of just like go around and share the good news. You don't have to shove it down people's throat, it's this idea of like, I'm sharing what I know with you, and you can kind of take it or leave it, but I'm not going to, did you do it yet? Did you do it yet? Did you do it yet? Because we do, we want to see our family, and we want to see the people close to us, win. And it's like, I'm here if you need me, but also it's a choice that you have to make on your own. It's an action that you need to take. And by continuing to just be a good example, you never know the impact that you're making on others. So I think that's really dope. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We are coming up on what I like to call the final sprint. I'm going to rapid fire some questions at you, and you can tell me whatever you want. Are you ready?
All right. I'm ready.
Let's do it. So you've got $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
$20. Probably a book. I love to read. I love to learn. Yeah.
Okay. What have you read recently that was pretty good?
So right now I'm reading, I'm reading a lot of spiritual books. So there's a book I'm reading now called Hearing God's Voice. So that's the book I'm like reading right now.
Okay. I'm here for it. Worst advice you've ever received?
Financial advice, I would say in college to get a credit card just to start building up my credit history. But I had no income. Like I had no way to pay off anything I would put on a credit card. So I didn't take that advice. And I'm glad I did it.
That is good advice not to take, right? It's a good way of thinking of it too. Like, how do these college students pay these credit cards?
Yeah.
What about the best advice you've ever received?
I would say good advice I received, but I didn't take it at the time. Good advice I received was to start pursuing real estate investing just to get some passive income coming in. But I was too risk adverse, and I would say probably too debt adverse too at the time, because my thought was, how am I going to come up with a down payment for this real estate investing? So I didn't do anything with it. And like now I wish I had started like years ago, back when I got that advice.
Okay, fair enough. What about something that is your frugal thing that others might roll their eyes at? Like something that, even though you reach this millionaire status, you still do. And yeah, your super frugal habit.
I would say, I'm just really, I don't consider this a frugal habit. I was going to say, I still live by my budget, my spending plan. But it's not in the sense of restricting me. It's just me planning how I'm going to spend my money. And I know people tend to think of budgeting as restrictive, but it just really depends on how you do it. So it's not restrictive the way I do it, but it's still a habit that, and I hate to call it frugal because I don't think it's a frugal thing, but it's just something that I did back then to get me where I am. And I still do it every single month.
I love it. Yeah. And I think frugal has a negative connotation, as does the word budgeting. But like the fact that you're sticking to a spending plan all this time later, I think sometimes there is the expectation like, oh, millionaire, I don't have to do anything anymore. It's like, your plan is what got you where you're going to go, and it's going to continue to get you where you want to go. And so you don't
Right.
abandon the budget. And I know every time I get a little bit, even if I don't look at it for a little bit more than a month or something like that, it's like, oop, let me get back over here in my lane. Like,
Yes.
out of sight, out of mind. If you don't tell your money where to go, you'll always be wondering where it went. So,
Yep, absolutely.
all right, finish this sentence. That awkward financial moment when.
That awkward financial moment when I was told that I was a millionaire. Like I didn't even know. Like I didn't know what net worth was. I didn't know how to calculate it. Like, so it wasn't something I was striving for. I actually sat down with someone that ran my numbers and told me. So it was a good awkward, but it was like, oh, okay. I had no idea.
That is an interesting awkward moment, but like you said, a good kind of awkward. All right. Why is this something that you're not why is your millionaire status not something that you're afraid of other people knowing about?
I would say because of what I'm using it to do. So I'm a financial coach and I'm using it to show women that I did it and they could do it too. I didn't do anything that was heroic or abnormal. I took my corporate salary, I maximized the use of it, I managed it well, and I built wealth. And I don't know if I wasn't a coach, if I would be sharing it so openly, but I do share it openly because I want people to realize that they can do it too.
I love it. So that, others realize that it's not impossible.
Right.
All right. Last but not least, what is one thing that you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year?
More passive income. So, right now, I don't really have any streams of passive income. I'm starting to learn real estate investing. I'm actually working with a real estate investing coach. So that's something that I'm learning. But yeah, I mean, the goal is not to have to show up to work every day, all the time. I need some passive streams of income. So that's my goal now.
Wonderful. All right. We have made it to the finish line. You are standing on the podium. Please tell the audience where we can find you, how we can support you, what cool projects you're working on. Yeah, go for it.
So I am April Stewart. My brand is April the Money Coach. So that's where you can find me on Instagram. I'm at April the Money Coach. And that's where I'm most active. That's where I like to play. And I also have a free download that you can grab. It's my free millionaire money checklist. And it basically tells you the exact steps I took to become a millionaire, the way that I, manage my money on a monthly basis. And then also any tips I have in terms of how you should, what's the word? I guess as you're building wealth, the things that you should look out for and pay attention to. So I share all of that in a free download that you can grab. And you can go to my Instagram and get it at April the Money Coach. There's a link in my bio that always points to it. And also my website is also